Having found a source of local quartz crystal, Bill Holman now has a lead on where one of the original crystal skulls may be hidden. He's learned from his trusted Maya source, Leonardo Okul, that there's an abandoned ruin on this property. It's a site called Ushbantun. And according to Christopher Nesbitt, it's somewhere at the top of this mountain.
It's probably a suburb of nearby Lubantun, and it's an area with a lot of terraces, housing terraces, house mounds. You can point at all the different hills over there, and they all have ruins on top of it.
So up the hill they go. First, they have to pass through a dense grove of trees. The heat and humidity is withering. The thickness of the forest, claustrophobic.
That's a big bamboo.
Even the ants here are mean and nasty.
He's got a big head, very powerful jaw muscles. He's got spikes on his thorax that'll make you bleed, and he can cut right into your skin.
Little suckers bite.
That is the amazing thing about this hike. As Bill and Chris climb up and up the mountain, tiny bits of the ancient Maya past jab at them from underfoot. Cut stones, hints of an outcropping.
From here on in, it's going to be bushwhacking.
Bill suddenly realized he was literally climbing up the side of a pyramid.
At one time, there were thousands of people living within eyesight of here. This is a very inhospitable place to have a city and an urban environment.
Ushbantun is a logical place to search for a crystal skull, since it shares many similarities with Lubantun, the site where the Mitchell Hedges skull was said to be found. The curved edges there are rumored to be identical to those found at Lubantun. So is the manner in which the walls were built.
Lubantun may be actually older than other Mayan cities. There's something special about it. It's near the coast. It was possibly a Phoenician port city, and certain ports like Lubantun and Tulum were essentially Atlantean ports.
In other words, Lubantun and neighboring Ushbantun may have been part of Atlantis, the lost continent from Plato's enigmatic tale. Atlantis, a powerful empire thriving thousands of years before the dawn of civilization.
Plato is pretty specific in saying it's out in the Atlantic. Well, as you go into the Atlantic, you have the Azores, which are part of Portugal. They are part of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. But as you go farther into the Caribbean, you have islands like Cuba, the Bahamas, also islands like the Bay Islands off Honduras.
All of these places were on the mind of Mitchell Hedges when he originally set sail for Lubantun. He believed this ancient site was Atlantis, and he hoped to find archaeological evidence to prove it. Is the crystal skull that proof? Is the crystal skull an artifact from Atlantis? If so, it would blow a hole in the accepted theory of human evolution.
Mainstream historians are telling us that civilization is only 5 or 6 or 7,000 years old. The story of Atlantis is saying that civilization is older than this. Civilization is going back 10, 20,000 years. If civilization is that old, and maybe the crystal skull is that old too, then this changes our notions of history and civilization.
And some researchers believe if we could crack the code that is written inside the crystal skulls, then we may find the answers to ancient mysteries. They might tell us who built the monoliths at Stonehenge, or explain the strange figures cut into the earth in Peru, called the Nazca Lines, that some say were created to be seen only from outer space.
The crystal skulls appear to be extraordinary, emblematic artifacts produced by a technology that we can't reproduce. And we have to now go back with 21st century technology and find out what it's trying to tell us.
Connecting the dots between ancient astronauts and mysterious objects like the crystal skulls is an all-consuming passion for Richard Hoagland. He's a former NASA consultant, and for the past 25 years, he's been investigating and heatedly challenging the U.S. government. His new book is titled Dark Mission: The Secret History of NASA.
Ignition, liftoff.
Hoagland began building his case after the 1976 Viking 1 mission, which went in search of life on Mars.
And they were passing over a northern region, a northern desert of Mars called Cydonia. And they photographed this very strange looking thing. Well, what we saw was a mesa that looked kind of like a quirky face.
That quirky face is now known as the face on Mars. The image created an international sensation.
It was a humanoid face, indicative of a potential human civilization that had once lived on Mars, that had built amazing structures in its immediate vicinity that look eerily like pyramids.
It's a mind-blowing theory. An ancient civilization thriving on Mars millions of years ago. Hoagland continued to study the face. As he did, he began to piece together a truly revolutionary theory. This face on Mars, 35 million miles away, may have been replicated by an ancient civilization on Earth.
It has a left and a right half. The left half is feline. It looks like a lion. The right half is hominid. And we find on Earth, particularly in the Mayan cultures, we find all kinds of artwork where you have a fusion of two creatures.
In the Maya world, mythology and astronomy go together, and various mythological deities represent astronomical features. So for the Maya, the Milky Way was thought of as the Great Mother in the sky, and the center of the Milky Way galaxy would have been her womb, the place of rebirth.
Hoagland believes this ancient civilization was not confined to Mars.
It probably was a solar system-wide civilization, in which case they may have also left stuff on the moon.
And that stuff on the moon, claims Hoagland, was made of crystal.
There's this incredible crystalline geometry arching above the moon's surface, and there's this incredible set of brilliant beads along the surface that can only be refracting because they're chunks of glass.
Using a computer, Hoagland claims he is able to enhance official NASA photos. What he sees are remnants of incredible structures on the moon's surface, enormous towers of crystal, spectacular crystal domes. The moon, a massive crystal outpost of an ancient civilization based on Mars. Then, Hoagland says, galactic disaster.
Mars got smashed. Mars is a place which underwent an incredible, horrible catastrophe.
The impact reverberated throughout the solar system, sending debris hurtling into the moon. Imagine the moon as an archaeological site. All we are left with, says Hoagland, are shards, ruins, blasted artifacts.
What was left was an incredible submerged remnant of an incredibly advanced civilization.
At the side of a crater investigated by the Apollo astronauts, Hoagland saw another mysterious object.
It was a head. It looked like a robot. It looked like an artificial life form.
To Hoagland, the robotic head seemed eerily familiar. He'd seen him before. Could this amazing artifact be a kind of robotic brother to the crystal skulls?
Imagine if you have an artificial life form which had a power source, which was killed, but whose head, brain, memory circuits, computer, whatever you want to call it, is in perfect preservation in a vacuum. The question, of course, in my mind was, did the astronauts bring it home?
But if the astronauts actually encountered fantastic remnants of an advanced civilization, or perhaps even a robotic head laying in an ancient blasted crater, Why hasn't NASA told the world? Hoagland believes NASA has sworn the astronauts to secrecy. And perhaps for good reason, national security. A few years after the National Aeronautics and Space Administration was formed, it commissioned a study from the Brookings Institution.
They came up with a document that in April of 1961 was submitted to Congress that unadvised public disclosure of this evidence could lead to the literal destruction of civilization.
NASA has refuted Hoagland's claims and refuses to comment on his allegations. Still, Hoagland wonders if NASA has been working to unlock the secrets stored inside objects like the robotic head and the crystal skulls, searching for prophecies written by a lost civilization.
If you were one of these ancient, incredibly sophisticated cultures, and you knew that terrible things were going to happen to the planet, and you wanted to leave libraries for your future descendants so they could reconstruct what it was that had happened and how to avoid it, maybe that's the mode that you would choose.